Everybody, it's Lee with Geekshow Tabletop, and I want to talk about something that can be a bit overwhelming and daunting for players. No matter how long you've been playing tabletop role-playing games, this is something that has probably come up and has caused you some distress. What I'm talking about is character creation. For games like Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, Warhammer Fantasy, all these games have an elaborate and comprehensive character creation system that in some cases can take hours to complete. And if you're trying to get into a new tabletop role-playing game, or if you're trying to encourage new players to get involved in a role-playing game, this could be one of the most insurmountable hurdles to getting into the game in the first place. Now, there are some folks who really get into and get super engaged with creating characters the old school way, pulling out the player's handbook and all the other ephemera that it takes to pull a character together, cross-referencing all of your different skills and your feats and your abilities, and getting super involved in all of that. I'm the same way with tabletop war games. I love painting miniatures more than I like actually playing games like Warhammer. It's kind of funny because people assume with my collection, you can see my unpainted wall of shame back there behind me, they think with my collection that I'm probably some sort of power gamer. That's just not the case. I'm the same way with building dungeons. I love building dungeons. Give me a pen and paper. I'm going to sit there and map that thing out for hours and hours and hours, and I will stock it full of monsters. But some folks want to use a map-making software system. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the same thing with building new characters for your tabletop role-playing games. Sometimes it's easier just to use a program. Now, let's take a look at a couple of ways that you can use free, readily available software that is not only elegant, but will take most of the guesswork, hassle, and dare I say stress out of creating a character. All right, first thing we're going to need to do is fire up the browser and go to dndbeyond.com. It's a free service. A lot of people think it might cost something, but you can actually get the rules for Dungeons & Dragons as well as the free character builder. Now, I made sure to hit the critical role characters because there's a couple of characters that my players want to play, and then it's time to name your character. I know I want to play an elf or a half-elf. I usually gravitate towards those, so let's come up with some floofy names. Those aren't working. Timble Thornberry. What am I thinking here? Felstred. What kind of idiot is going to call their character? Let's just use the randomizer. No. Okay. Keldark's cool. So let's give Keldark an appropriate name. Willow, woodsy, tree, blah, blah, willow, no, too dwarvish. Let's go with willow shade. There we go. Cool. Now moving on, scrolling down through the available classes, there's my half-elf, obviously, and here's our options. So selecting through the options, we're going to go with the wood elf, half-elf, and here it's going to pop up the different traits and special abilities that are available to you. So you can scroll through this before you even select whether or not you want to play a half-elf. Now in my case, I already know that I want to, so I'm choosing the race and moving on. With the half-elf, I get 2 ability score increases. Different character races are going to have different options available to them. So since I know I'm probably going to be playing a ranger, I'm going to go with a dexterity bonus, and this is a tough one. Wisdom's pretty good for the kind of play I do, but I'm going to go with constitution because that'll give me more hit points. And let's scroll through the available languages since we'll get a bonus language here. And let's see what's going to be best for somebody who's going to spend quite a bit of time either in the woods. We'll go Sylvan. Okay. And of course, he's Wood Elf Descent, so we get some options with what he's able to do with that. So I'm going to give him Mask of the Wild, which makes him a little easier for him to hide. Now, there's nothing telling us about Mask of the Wild now, but it does pop up later on the build. So let's go for class. I'm a sucker for Rangers. Now, of course, the greatest Ranger of them all, Aragorn, also half-elven. So, of course, we're going to go with a ranger. So he has a favorite enemy. What kind of favorite enemy do I want to go with? See, in the books, I would have had to look all of this up and just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. D&D Beyond's character builder gives you all the options. They're right there. I can see that I want to go with a natural explorer. What kind of... It's just telling me all of my options for the ranger before I have to select the class. If I don't want to do this class, I can just hit that X up there in the right-hand corner and pick something else. But I already know I'm going for a ranger. So I'm just going to look through and make sure that this is all stuff that I want. So, okay, we've got some spell abilities available to us. That's cool. We got ranger archetypes. Cool. All right, this is definitely what I'm wanting to go with. So I'm going to add the class. D&D Beyond adds everything up. So let's go with our hit points. We already know that our hit points at first level is going to be our hit die plus constitution bonus. Let's pick our proficiency. So choosing ranger skills, we're going to have 3 of them. Again, it's just doing all the bookkeeping for us. So in this case, no, I'm going to want to go with perception, but a ranger without an animal, we'll go with animal handling, and nature and perception. Okay, so those are my 3 proficiencies. I already knew I was going to want that. My favorite enemy, I really wanted to go with orcs. I don't see orcs in the list. It's possible that I missed them. But hey, what does a nature-loving elf hate more than anything? And that's the undead. And scrolling through for another language. I might regret this, but I'm going to go with infernal because I believe that's the speech of the underworld. Natural explorer is something that my character can do, so I'm going to choose what my character is best at exploring. So I'm going to go with mountains. Normally I would go with woods, but I thought it'd be cool to have like a ranger that grew up in the mountains and is really good at exploring the nooks and the crannies and the peaks. This is my favorite part of creating a character with D&D Beyond. You have a couple of different things you can do. A standard array, you can do, which is basically dice rolling, or you can do a point spread. So I wanted to go with 4 dice, discarding the lowest number. And you get to roll 6 different times, which is neat. Our numbers aren't too bad here, actually, for a first level character. We've got 2 16s, 2 15s, 2 11s. And then you can just go through and assign them. The most important thing for a ranger, of course, is dexterity. So that's going to be my first pick. Then we're going to go down to intelligence. He doesn't need to be the brightest boy. And go to constitution at 15. Want to be kind of tough, have decent hit points. Strength, not so much. Let's go with wisdom. And then charisma 15 and strength of 11. So not the strongest person in the world, but definitely a charmer. And then everything is saved and automatically added to my character sheet, which is just fantastic. So you can see that I've got my already determined dexterity bonus and my constitution bonus. Those were because of my racial skill proficiency added. I'm using all the wrong words. That's what I do. Okay, we've got our character name. We're going to choose an option here for his background. And it's cool. So he's a far traveler. Gives us all the definitions of what a far traveler is. And I'm going to say that his skill proficiency is going to be in medicine from knowing about all those berries in the mountains and everything. So that's cool. Tool proficiency, this one kind of threw me a little bit because, you know, do I really want to go with a loot or gambling dice? I mean, is he Matt from Wheel of Time? No, he's not any of those things. So I was thinking of a loot, but that's really, really done to death. So I think I'm going to go, well, this is a tough one. Who thought I was going to get caught up on whether or not he was going to do a loot? Let's give him the bird pipes. So I'm assuming that means that you can trill like... make trilling sounds like a bird. So not quite sure why I have another language here, but it'll all work itself out on the character sheet. So well, I guess I'll have to figure one out here. Okay. I don't know. I was almost going to pick halfling for a second. I thought it'd be funny to be able to speak halfling. But we're going to go with undercommon. So, because if he lives in the mountains, chances are or you know what? Let's maybe go with a non-binary character. So they would be able to speak the undercommon. So we're going to go with personality traits here. And I like to play characters that are really in tune with their culture and with their background and honor. It's just what I like to play. Someday I'm going to play a dashing rogue, and 2 or 3 levels in, all of a sudden that rogue is going to be all about, their honor and their background. I just can't help it. That's just how I play characters. When I'm DMing, it's a completely different story. But all right, so we're going to pick our ideals, our bonds, and our flaws. So in all of these cases, I'm just going to go with what I normally go with, which is, your typical honorable character. Another great thing about D&D Beyond is this account could be free. You can get in and use this free account, but you could also get a link from your dungeon master that will allow you to access everything that they have if they have the right account setting. So I have like the master setting for D&D Beyond. So that allows me to share all of the books that I have, all my PDFs with my players. I went with a neutral good character because that's just a fun character to play. The reason why I went with neutral and not lawful is because this character doesn't follow man's law. He follows nature's law, or they follow nature's laws. So, okay, we're going to go with physical characteristics. This one is just mostly for flavor. Let's see, lifestyle. I went with a modest lifestyle because this person's an elf. They're not going to, or half elf. They're not going to live in poverty. They'll get a good inn if they need to. Mostly, I think this person will live out in the woods if needed. Brown hair, went with tan skin because this person's outside a lot. Violet eyes to show their elven heritage. Went with a pretty decent height for a human, probably on the smaller side for a elf, and roughly 160, 170 pounds. This character is really slight. You can use the slider like I did, or you can just punch in the numbers. So age, probably go with something around maybe 120 years. Yeah, not too old for an elf. And let's make up my mind on this. I think I'll play a non-binary character, which is great because I was able to choose gender neutral. So thank you for allowing folks who don't want to play a gendered character, not making them have to do so. That's pretty cool. For a program, that's nice. So here you get to put in your own stuff, like your backstory, organizations, allies. You can put in just journal information if you want to. So that's all good to be able to put in there. Let's get some inventory for this character. I'm just going to pick the standard equipment option. So let's see, we have scale miller leather. We're going to go with leather. We're going to go with 2 simple melee weapons instead of, 2 short swords. I'd rather have 2 short swords. An explorer's pack, which just automatically fills, and a longbow and quiver of 20 arrows. So we're doing great there. And let's see if there's anything else we want to throw in there. So, I want to make sure I have my bird pipe, because if I know how to play it, I want to make sure I have one right from the very beginning. So when this character sees some play, they have their bird pipes and they're ready to go and entertain their peers. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. We have arrows. We've got our, I probably make sure that I've got, there's my bird pipes. And I've got a bedroll, got my longbow. Let's go ahead and equip my leather armor and get the longbow. We'll go ahead and wield that and wield the short sword. So we're just ready for action right out of the gate. Got our tinderbox. I've got 10 torches, water skin, mess kit, rations for 1 day. Probably should have bought more rations, but if I were to play this character, instead of using it as an NPC, I would probably check with my GM and see if I could go back in and make some changes to this. So all of the bookkeeping and money spent here is already taken care of by D&D Beyond, which is fantastic. All right, you want to add anything else from our basic shopping list? I don't think we need to. Let's move on. All right, checking out the character sheet. look how cool this is. There's the character sheet. So we can already see our bonuses for all of our stats. So with an 11 strength, there's no bonus. With dexterity of 17, get a +3. Constitution of 16, get a +3. Intelligence 11, there's no bonus. We've got the wisdom of 16, gives us a +3, and the charisma of 17 gives us a +3. So really good bonuses going along with that. And let's see, we've got, yeah, great stats all around. And we can check out our actions that are available to this character and the items that are available. And I love this. I just push this button here and it rolls a die for me. So we'll be showing in a later video how you can integrate this into virtual tabletops. But again, as a dungeon master, I can link my players' characters to any campaign that I have built by just sending a code to my players, and then they can bring their character sheets in, or I can sign them in to my account and help them build a character sheet. It's pretty simple stuff. But what about you? I want to know what you find to be the most rewarding part of character creation. Do you have a hard time getting into the pen and paper aspect of it and all of the research and, dare I say, textbooks that it takes to build a new character? Or are you like me and want to just dive in and get a character created and move on with it? Get to playing the game in the first place. Let me know in the comments below. And we're not done with this topic yet. Character creation is an incredibly involved process that takes a lot more than just writing down a couple of stats, getting your feats and your equipment together. Sometimes you might want to know what they look like too. In our next segment, we'll be talking about ways that you can get really detailed, very specific custom portraits, or something kind of like a portrait for your character, custom for you, for your game, without putting out a ton of money or being able to draw or borrowing somebody else's art off the internet. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And if life's going to be full of crits, here's hoping they're the good ones.